Hey everyone. Just like you see in my title, I'm going to read from my new book called Anxiety RX. So let's take a look. This book is from Russell Kennedy, MD. And on the book cover under Anxiety RX, it says, "A new prescription for anxiety relief from the doctor who created it." Now I'm going to go straight to the introduction. He writes, "Many years ago, I had a patient send me an email that said, 'Dear Dr. Kennedy, I am almost out of my anxiety medication, and I need you to renew my perception.' She had meant to say renew my prescription. When I read that, I thought, if she could truly renew her perception, she probably wouldn't need the prescription. The story is the reason Renew Your Perception, Not Your Prescription is written on the back cover. I love this story so much, and it captures the heart of what I would love to see for you, to be empowered to change your perception of yourself and your anxiety so much that you no longer need medication. Now, let me say clearly, I am not against medication. I am a medical doctor, after all. I used to prescribe it every single day as a practicing physician. In many cases, medication is an invaluable part of treatment, and I am not recommending in any way that you stop taking any medications without consulting your doctor. Further, this book is not intended to be medical advice because very little of what I am going to share with you has anything to do with what I learned in medical school. Being a trained and licensed physician certainly helped me in understanding the physiology of anxiety, but it was my training in neuroscience and developmental psychology, along with my own diverse life experience learning to treat my own anxiety in very non traditional ways, that formed this book. It's also important to note I am not a psychiatrist. Psychiatrists do at least 5 years of additional training in psychiatry after graduating from medical school, and, in my opinion, they're guided down a specific pharmacological path and usually stay within it for their entire careers. As a generalist, I had the freedom to pursue many different ideas that were well outside of conventional medicine. And as you'll soon see, I do not think like a medical doctor when it comes to anxiety. I think like a medical doctor when it comes to physical ailments, but when it comes to emotional ones, the medical model has significant limitations. I respect the work of psychiatrists because I know they often get the patients with the most severe illness, and that is a very tough burden to bear. Psychiatry is changing with the increasing use of psychedelics, and some psychiatrists are starting to accept the role of somatic therapists, but it is the rare psychiatrist that embraces the mind body connection as I do. 5 years ago, I myself came completely off SSRI, SSNI type medications using the methods I will show you in this book, and I had taken those medications for over 25 years. My hope is that when you embrace for the hard-worn concepts I'll show you, you may well be able to reduce or come off your prescriptions as well. But again, and I cannot state this clearly enough, only reduce or come off your prescription medications under the guidance of your own doctor. In this book, I want to help you renew your perception and look at yourself and your anxiety in a completely new way. It is what saved my life and just might save yours. One of the biggest problems I've had as a doctor helping people heal from anxiety is the term anxiety has no consistent definition. Google what is anxiety, and you'll see a mismatch of physical and emotional symptoms in a very long list. How are you supposed to treat something when you don't know what that something is? When most people, including doctors and therapists, use the term anxiety, they refer to a list of worrisome thoughts and painful feelings that you can pick and choose from like some kind of neurotic smorgasbord. That is not a definition. That's a Costco list, and one that results in a bag of chips, some golf balls, a couple of frozen dinners, and maybe a backpack and a microwave oven. How do you effectively treat a list of disparate symptoms that you may or may not have? In my medical opinion, you can't. As a doctor, I know the more precisely I define and describe an illness or condition, the better I can treat it. The opposite is even more true. The less defined something is, the harder it is to treat. And anxiety has been notoriously hard to treat because we have no consistent and predictable way of pinning it down. So here it goes. Are you ready for a consistent and predictable definition? Please stay with me as your quality of life depends on it. Anxiety is a thinking process of the mind. That's it. Ready for another revelation? Anxiety is not painful. This may surprise you and may even cause you to doubt my credibility. If you feel resistance to this concept of anxiety being a painless thought process, let me assure you making this distinction has allowed me and many others to heal from chronic, relentless, persistent, worrisome, or fear-inducing thoughts. Quite simply, anxiety itself doesn't hurt. The painful part comes from anxiety's evil twin, alarm. And I will tell you that you are confusing anxiety, the process that produces potentially fearful thoughts in your mind, with a painful feeling in your body. The thoughts themselves are not painful. Just as the brain itself has no pain sensation. I've been in the operating room during neurosurgery where I saw you can operate directly on the brain with only the anesthesia of the overlying skull and scalp. Anxious thoughts are equally painless. Why then does anxiety feel so uncomfortable? You'll see as this book unfolds, the pain you feel is not coming from anxious thoughts of your mind, but from a sense of alarm stored in your body. Alarm is a combination of misaligned energy of your fight or flight sympathetic nervous system with an activating energy originating from the unresolved emotional pain that has been repressed within your body. I'm going to repeat that. Alarm is a combination of misaligned energy of your fight or flight sympathetic nervous system with an activating energy originating from unresolved emotional pain that has been repressed within your body. If you struggle with anxiety, your worry aggravates the alarm in your body, and it is the sense of alarm that is the source of your discomfort. Just because worries activate the alarm does not mean the worries are the cause. If you're just coming in, everyone, you can sit and listen to me read from my new book called Anxiety RX. This is not my work. This is work by Dr. Russell Kennedy, MD. For one more clarifying example, imagine your toaster short circuits and starts a fire in your house, and then you throw lit matches on the flames. The matches make the fire worse, but they did not cause the fire in the first place. If you stop throwing matches on the fire, the problem is still there in the form of a fire in progress, started by the toaster, not the matches. The alarm stored in our bodies is the toaster with the exposed wire. Let's repeat that. The alarm stored in our bodies is the toaster with the exposed wire. The matches are our worries. To heal, we must address the root problem, the toaster, and stop blaming the matches for a fire they surely aggravated but did not start. Even once we extinguish the fire, the problem may reoccur if we don't replace the toaster. But with the illusion that the matches, the anxious thoughts, are the problem, we may direct our efforts at removing all the matches from the house while leaving the broken toaster in place. In 2015, I was at an anxiety conference in Vancouver, British Columbia. I know that sounds like a bunch of nervous people in the same room, but it was a group of doctors, social workers, teachers, and psychologists listening to various presentations on how to heal anxiety. Much of it was predictable and not new to me, but when developmental psychologist Dr. Gordon Neufeld spoke, what he said rocked my world. All anxiety is separation anxiety. Let's read that again. This is a quote from Dr. Gordon Neufeld. All anxiety is separation anxiety. That, along with many other things Dr. Neufeld said, has stuck with me to this day. Anxiety and alarm almost always result from a break in attachment during childhood. In other words, an experience of separation. Hey, Danny. So, Danny, I don't know if you saw the title or if I even did it properly. I'm reading from my new book called Anxiety RX. It's by Dr. Russell Kennedy. And I'm already into the first chapter or just the introduction. But this book was recommended, and I'm glad you're here. I'll probably read one chapter. But I want to go back and repeat a quote from Dr. Gordon Neufeld. He said, "All anxiety is separation anxiety." And to continue that, along with many other things Dr. Neufeld said, has stuck with me to this day. Anxiety and alarm almost always result from a break in attachment during childhood. In other words, an experience of separation. When we are separated from our attached figures, either physically or emotionally, our bodies go into a state of alarm. This is an activated state, a fight or flight type reaction the body mounts automatically when we sense real or perceived separation. However, instead of fighting or fleeing, that activated response is initially not about fighting or fleeing at all. It is an activated reaction to mobilize us to pursue a lost connection. That's right, the reason for our fight or flight reactions is usually not about a threat to our physical safety. In our modern world, it is much more often about a threat to our emotional safety. And according to Dr. Neufeld, and I agree completely, this state of alarm is not about flight, moving away, but about pursuit, moving toward. In reaction to real or perceived separation, we engage in this alarm-based pursuit as a reflexive attempt to reconnect to our attachment figures. If the pursuit fails, and despite our best efforts, we still feel separate from our attachment figures, the alarm intensifies and the body stays in a state of alarm for an extended period. This state of alarm, which started as a reaction to a real or perceived separation, becomes intensified and prolonged by the anxious thoughts of the mind. Over time, if we're subject to an alarming state of affairs, like abuse, loss, abandonment, or rejection, we are unable to resolve, or if we don't have access to a caregiver that can love and calm us, that alarm state becomes stored in our bodies. If you struggle with chronic anxious thoughts, it is highly probable you have a version of this state of alarm in your system, likely from a time in your life where you felt separated from your attachment figures and you were unable to close the gap. For me, and that's the author of this book, Dr. Russell Kennedy, my emotional separation from my schizophrenic father caused my body to go into an alarmed, activated state of pursuit to reconnect with him. As I was unable to decrease the separation because his mind was too fractured for him to connect with me, my alarm level increased. This alarm energy became a chronic state in my body, where it would energize more false, worrisome thoughts in my mind. At the same time, the alarm energy would create a sense of my survival being threatened, which would impair my brain's ability to recognize those thoughts as false. As a result, I would believe or give power to the false worries I had created, thus increasing the sense of alarm, which then created more worrisome thoughts. I was trapped in a feedback loop I call the alarm anxiety cycle, where the alarm in my body generated anxious thoughts in my mind, and those thoughts generated more alarm. Does this cycle sound familiar? And I have to say for myself sitting here, yes, it does. So I'll continue in his book here. What we call anxiety is a combination of alarm state in the body and anxious thoughts in the mind. I have found immeasurable relief in addressing the alarm of the body separately from the anxious thoughts of the mind. A considerable part of my healing was due to using the term anxiety simply to refer to the anxious thoughts of the mind. In this way, I divorced anxiety of the mind from the alarm state in the body. In distilling alarm and anxiety down to their essence, I was able to break the cycle by showing the component parts were separate and therefore separable. I will continue to use the term anxiety in this book only to refer to the machinations and worrisome thoughts of the mind. The reason why most of the treatments for generalized understanding of anxiety have failed or been of limited benefit is they have focused on treating the anxious thoughts of the mind, which is the effect of the alarm in the system, and virtually ignored the true underlying cause, the alarm in the body. In other words, we have been trying to get rid of all the matches in the house while ignoring the short circuiting toaster. Hey, Peggy, welcome in. And if everybody's still here, again, I'm reading a book called Anxiety RX by Dr. Russell Kennedy. And let's see, I just lost my place. There we go. When I was living at a temple in rural India and later teaching yoga classes in downtown Vancouver, I saw a lot of people with a string of prayer beads around their necks. These strings of beads, called japa malas, are often used by Hindus and Buddhists to help maintain focus during meditation and prayer. They are also used by hipsters to appear spiritual. The traditional japa mala has 108 beads. The number 108 is held as a sacred number said to be found in the ratios of our solar system, with the diameter of the sun being 108 times the diameter of the earth, and the distance from the earth to the moon being equivalent to 108 diameters of the moon. Hold on, everybody. Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, do you want to go see Jim Benton?
Yeah, where?
Stephen and Joanne said he's an Oakmont tonight,
Yeah, let's go.
and they have dinner reservations before, but I'll get the information.
Okay.
I have no clue, but whatever it is, I just want to go out tonight.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Bye. Sorry, everybody. That's my hubby calling. Okay. And back to those measurements and the whole relevance to the number 108. It looks like Dr. Kennedy did the math, and it's very close, but by no means exact. So his book continues. What I can say for sure is 108 is a 3-digit multiple of 3, 3 times 36, and its components add up to 9, 3 times 3. There is also purported to be the number of balance, as you can see with the tripod base on any drum stool. The drummer may be all over the place, but he sits in a place of balance to do that. This book is about me going all over the world in search of emotional balance as a salve to my unending anxiety. The farther I traveled out into the world, the further it took me inside to myself. To quote Elizabeth Gilbert in her book, Eat, Pray, Love, she says, I also like the idea of stringing these stories along the structure of a japa mala necklace because it is so structured. Sincere spiritual investigation is and always has been an endeavor of methodical discipline. Looking for truth is not some kind of spazzy free-for-all, not even during this, the great age of the spazzy free-for-all. End of quotes. Although it may not be popular for a guy to say this, I really loved that book. I thought if I ever wrote a book, I was going to use that structure as well. And here we are. In the first 36 chapters, we travel to the land of awareness of mind. I'll show you that you must be able to see your anxiety with a new outlook because you can't change what you can't see. Through awareness, I'll show you the fundamental cycle that anxiety runs on and how you can break it. I'll also show you how to use awareness to examine your anxious thoughts, or perhaps more importantly, to just let them go. I'll show you how anxious thoughts cannot survive in the light of awareness, which disarms the anxiety half of the anxiety alarm cycle. My voice is starting to get funny. I know, Danny, it's very interesting. This book was highly recommended to me last week. Let me take a drink here. On the last leg of the journey, awareness of self, we return to the place our connection to ourselves was interrupted. We will focus on reconnecting and cultivating a compassionate connection with ourselves. I believe we all have compassion for ourselves, but our life experiences and underlying temperament cause us to lose touch with what truly heals anxiety. namely a sense of connection and care for ourselves. I'm going to read that again. Dr. Russell Kennedy says, I believe we all have compassion for ourselves, but our life experiences and underlying temperament cause us to lose touch with what truly heals anxiety, namely a sense of connection and care for others. The reason you become anxious is that once upon a time you left yourself, often to look after a parent, or was just too unbearable to be in your body. As a result, you learn to judge, abandon, blame, and shame yourself. In short, take jabs at yourself. Those jabs insidiously set traps or blocks to self compassion or self care blocks that prevent you from having a mind and body that are in sync. As a result, you are blocked from becoming securely attached to yourself, and this separation energy creates what you have called anxiety. To heal, you need to reestablish this secure attachment to yourself so your mind and body get back in sync. I know, Danny, this is only the introduction, and this is just really hitting home. Okay. The last 36 chapters are devoted to strategies to resolve this split that generated the alarm in the first place. Once you have healed this split, and I think I already read this, you can then connect the mind and body in a constructive, adaptive, and fulfilling way. In states of anxiety or alarm, the mind and body are not operating in harmony. There is a connection between them, but the connection is destructive rather than constructive. The mind and body learn to connect with excessive worry and alarm, giving rise to the alarm, anxiety, and cycle as a coping strategy of a child that needed to survive. We need to reconnect with ourselves, and in that new mind-body connection, we move from a focus on survival, and thus a fear of growth, to moving toward true progress. In short, we go from surviving to thriving. As we take this journey together, you'll learn how to remove those blocks your mind creates. We will isolate and expose those jabs, which were judge, abandon, blame, and shame, that you take at yourself, and perhaps for the first time, you'll learn how to be truly connected to yourself. As your relationship with others can be no better than the relationship you have with yourself, your own mind-body connection allows you to become connected to others, which in turn provides you with the attachment you need to soothe the alarm. Since anxiety depends on the alarm created by the mind-body separation, it cannot survive without that separation. Once you are truly connected, what you call your anxiety has no choice but to retreat. Healing in the mind leads to healing in the body, and vice versa, and each opens a new door for the healing of the other. If you try to heal just one, as in doing yoga 10 hours a day for the body or psychotherapy 10 hours a day for the mind, you won't heal nearly as effective or efficiently as when you do an hour a day of each. Seeing the difference between anxiety and alarm will help you immeasurably in understanding how they form a reciprocating loop, each one feeding off the other like two siblings fighting in the backseat of a car. And once the anxiety of the mind is separated from the alarm in the body, each loses its respective energy source. I'm going to repeat that. Once the anxiety of the mind is separated from the alarm in the body, each loses its respective energy source. And at that point, the anxiety of the mind and the alarm in the body can be treated separately, and the fight stops, just like two siblings who are now separated by a caring parent. As you'll learn, the parent is you. I have about a page and a half left. It is imperative for you to know there is nothing wrong with you. In fact, your mind and body are working as they should, which might sound weird to you, especially if you've been suffering for a long time. You have simply learned to automatically believe your thoughts because a part of you thinks that indiscriminate belief in your worries is keeping you safe. You are being tricked by your own perception, a perception that tells you must be hypervigilant and keep on worrying to keep yourself safe. That may have had an element of truth in your childhood, but you are not a child anymore, and that vigilance that once helped you survive is now incredibly harmful. You do not have a disease. You have simply learned a pattern of perception that is creating what you call anxiety. This is simply a coping strategy. It is not who you are. Anxiety is an adaptation to a stress, usually chronic, that was too much for your mind and body to bear. Another sentence I will repeat. Anxiety is an adaptation to a stress, usually chronic, that was too much for your mind and body to bear. It is inevitable that we all carry some form of emotional trauma from childhood. Here's an example I often use. Let's say, for the sake of argument and a slightly awkward metaphor, the child's mind can hold 1 cupful of emotional trauma. Death of the family pet, a grandparent who lives in another city passes away, or starting at a new school. Now let's pour 2 cupfuls of trauma into a child's life. A parent is very sick or addicted to their parent's divorce, or they are chronically bullied at school. The trauma that contained by the first cup runs over, and the excess trauma runs into the body and is stored there, where it must eventually be addressed and metabolized in order for us to truly heal. This book is about showing you ways your body and mind can unlearn that trauma pattern and renew that faulty perception with a healthier one, based in greater truth and awareness. In doing so, you can learn to accept you. In doing so, you can learn to accept you do not have to believe everything you think, and come in to see and know a peaceful place where you need not think at all. Returning to the book, Eat, Pray, Love, for a moment. Every Japa Mala beaded necklace has a special extra bead, the 109th bead, which dangles outside that balanced circle of 108 like a pendant. When your fingers reach this marker during prayer, you are meant to pause from your absorption into meditation and thank your teachers. As I reach the 109th bead and publish this book, I acknowledge Elizabeth Gilbert, and that's the woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, for inspiring me to create the framework for this book, and for all of my teachers who have gone before me on the path. Looking for truth in my search to heal from chronic anxiety has been a bit of a spazzy free-for-all, for I too realize I am a seeker and a writer. Perhaps most importantly, as I reach the 109th bead, I must acknowledge anxiety as my greatest teacher. I am grateful for the trust the universe has placed in me to experience it in the presence of so many other teachers. I am grateful for the learnings, both scientifically and spiritually, based in the hope I may be the teacher for others. So again, everybody, that was the introduction to Anxiety RX, a book by Dr. Russell Kennedy, recommended to me last week. And I'm pretty much excited. I want to get further, but the reason I'm reading is because I read too fast, and if I'm just reading, I read too fast and I can't concentrate. So I thought reading aloud would allow me to slow down a bit, and plus I can share with all of you. So yeah, so sorry if you got the alert that I was going live a little late. I'm still new to this, but if you can hit the like button, and I will start on part 1, Awareness of the Mind, on another date. Thanks for being here, everyone. Have a good evening. Love you all.